As a registered student organization or a club on campus, you'll find yourself wanting supplies or food for your events. And of course, it doesn't have to be limited to this, um, but in order to be able to take advantage of what you can do for your events, you're going to want to submit a budget request. And the easiest way to do so is to head over to the Undergraduate Student Government Hartford page, going to Forums, and clicking on Budget Request. There are several conditions that must be followed, and they're all written right here. So if you don't want to watch this video again, you can simply just read this next time. However, I'm going to list them off just to be clear about it. So the first condition is your budget request must be sent in at least 2 weeks prior to the date of the event. This is incredibly important. This is for processing the order, getting the order, and because the financial committee gets so many of these requests and it's voted on at the USG meetings, at least 2 weeks prior is generally when you want to get it in all the time. Budget requests must be sent in before 12 p.m. on Friday to be considered at the next USG meeting. So, so long as you submit it before 12 p.m. Friday, then of course it will be considered at the next USG meeting. If this isn't fulfilled, it'll be considered at the USG meeting after the next one. For budget requests over 500, such as buses and branded items, such as t-shirts, jerseys, mugs, budget requests must be submitted 1 month in advance. So any budget request for $500, it must be submitted 1 month in advance. So of course, if it's below that, you have to do it at least 2 weeks. But of course, if it's 500 or higher, it has to be at least 1 month in advance. The next one is you must post your event to the events calendar. I already went over this in another tutorial, so I'll put the link in the description. I'll put the link in description, and you can just navigate over there and watch the video on how to do that. You must submit attendance via Google Sheets or a hard copy to amanda.carducci@uconn.edu within 24 hours. Now, this is the current head of the financial committee. However, this might change, and this definitely will change as time goes on. So you can either submit it via Google Sheets, or you can give a hard copy to whoever is the head of the financial committee during your time at UConn Hartford. You must submit an itemized tax-exempt receipt to the head of the financial committee within 24 hours. And that's pretty self-explanatory. You just need to show an itemized tax-exempt receipt. You must attend the weekly USG meeting where your request will be brought up. So you have to be at the USG meeting where this request will be voted on. And of course, this is so that you can sign a form showing your compliance or agreement to the terms. And it's also so if the committee needs to ask you questions, you can clarify and you can argue your case as to why this is beneficial to your club and the school. And the last one, of course, is at least 4 weeks prior to your bus trip, email daniel.o'reilly@uconn.edu the date, time, and addresses of departure and arrival locations, and allow 1 week for bus vendors to bid. Student activities will notify you of the lowest bidder and share their quote with you. So this one's a bit tricky, but if you're planning a bus trip for your club, you will have to have more time in order to kind of discuss things over. So make sure that you stay in constant contact with whoever is the advisor at that point. Of course, for us, it would be daniel.o'reilly@uconn.edu. Of course, you will need to check this box, otherwise you will not be able to submit your form. And this is kind of in small text, but it basically reads, failure to meet all the requirements will result in possible loss of funds of my RSO. So it is important that you keep up and maintain all of these conditions. These are incredibly important. Uh, yeah, so now we can actually get to filling out the form. The form itself is rather easy. Uh, just like all the other forms, you can just put in your information. And so you can kind of go ahead and fill it out. Uh, and the next couple of questions are going to be very important. Um, you'll be asked for what pretty much clarification on what the product is, so whether it's products or supplies, and you'll have to pretty much fill out all the information provided when you click on this. So for example, if I hit no, I'm not going to get this pop-up, but if I click yes here, of course it'll be here. And then of course if this is for some event, we will have to fill out the information down here, and you can see there is a lot, and so we'll go over that. If you choose yes for either of these, the boxes are generally the same, so I'm just going to choose yes for the first one, the products and supplies one, and we'll walk through it. A lot of this is pretty self-explanatory. Of course, we're going to have to explain our products and supplies, or explain our vendor, give the email of our vendor for contact, give the number of our vendor. Of course, we need an expected number of users, and this is going to be very important. When you're filing a budget request, I highly, highly recommend that you have some sort of attendance sheet for how many members of your club generally go to your events. I ask this, or I recommend this from my own personal experience of attending meetings. Oftentimes it is that some clubs will ask for a certain number of items, and the question always is, how do you know? Like, you can never guarantee that that many people will show up. So it's always a good idea to be prepared ahead of time and to have a prepared list of attendance, or an attendance sheet, my bad, and to present it as proof of how many people do show up. And the easiest way to do this is to have an attendance sheet of whatever meetups that you guys have. Simple as that, and have everybody log in. And this could be a simple paper, or it could be a Google Sheets. And so, of course, this information is very important. And then you're going to have to describe how will the items be used, like what the purpose is, and brief description of what you're purchasing. So the name of the product, how much of it, the cost per item if there's multiple, the total cost, and the ASIN number is pretty much just it's a number given to a it's a number given to a product. Usually it's underneath the product. You'll just have to put that value in. It should be copy and paste. Now, for this one, is this for an event? This is pretty much almost the same. Of course, it's going to be different information. We're gonna have to be provided the title of the event flyer, of course our vendor email, and a bunch of other information. Our expected number of attendees. Of course, this goes back to to my recommendation of showing a sign-in sheet or attendance sheet, so that members of USG know that how many people are going to show up. And of course, similar questions to what was up in this previous one. And if we go down, you're going to see that little quotes and extra information section. So we're going to have to put in total funds requested, so how much money we need. Our quote number, only if we have it. We'll have to upload our quote. So this is going to be a tax exempt quote. This is pretty much how much money you're going to be spending, or how much money you're going to be spending on whatever you're buying or needing. And of course, this is going to be mandatory. And any extra documentation. So any extra documentation for pretty much anything that you want to provide for evidence, or maybe for your quote. If we click on this here, you can see an example quote that was made in a PDF. And so you'll see that there's a lot of information here, but pretty much the quote is going to be information from the vendor that will allow you and USG to understand how much money it is going to be, of course, tax exempt, It's going to be where the delivery will be, what the price of each item is, um, and you can ask for a quote from the vendor that you are going to be buying at. And of course, you'll have to give a brief description about your event. And then once you're done, just go ahead and hit submit. It is a lot of information. However, there is a lot that goes into a budget request form, and so it can get very involved. And there'll have to be a lot of clear communication between you, the club member, uh, the vendor, and the finance committee. Hopefully that was able to clear things up. And of course, check the description for any resources that we may add to help you make this as easy as possible.